Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/BrianEDenton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Today's reading and reflection is on Chapter 239. Chapter 239. Madame Schoss, who had been out to visit her daughter, increased the Countess's fears still more by telling her what she had seen at a spirit dealer's in Mayansky Street. When returning by that street, she had been unable to pass because of a drunken crowd rioting in front of the shop. She had taken a cab and driven home by a side street, and the cabman had told her that the people were breaking open the barrels at the drink store, having received orders to do so. After dinner, the whole Rostov household set to work with enthusiastic haste, packing their belongings and preparing for their departure. The old count, suddenly setting to work, kept passing from the yard to the house and back again, shouting confused instructions to the hurrying people, and flurrying them still more. Petya directed things in the yard. Sonia, owing to the Count's contradictory orders, lost her head and did not know what to do. The servants ran nosily about the house and yard, shouting and disputing. Natasha, with her ardor characteristic of all she did suddenly, set to work too. At first her intervention in the business of packing was received skeptically. Everybody expected some prank from her, and did not wish to obey her. But she resolutely and passionately demanded obedience, grew angry and nearly cried because they did not heed her, and at last succeeded in making them believe her. Her first exploit, which cost her immense effort and established her authority, was the packing of the carpets. The Count had valuable Golovin tapestries and Persian carpets in the house. When Natasha set to work, 2 cases were standing open in the ballroom. One almost full up with crockery, the other with carpets. There was also much china standing on the tables, and still more was being brought in from the storeroom. A 3rd case was needed, and servants had gone to fetch it. "Sonia, wait a bit. We'll pack everything into these," said Natasha. "You can't, miss. We have tried to," said the butler's assistant. "No, wait a minute, please." And Natasha began rapidly taking out the case of dishes and plates wrapped in paper. "The dishes must go in here among the carpets," said she. "Why, it's a mercy if we can get the carpets alone into 3 cases," said the butler's assistant. "Oh, wait, please." And Natasha began rapidly and deftly sorting out the things. "These aren't needed," said she, putting aside some plates of Kievware. "These, yes, these must go among the carpets," she said, referring to the Saxony china dishes. "Don't, Natasha, leave it alone. We'll get it all packed," urged Sonia reproachfully. "What a young lady she is," remarked the major domo. But Natasha would not give in. She turned everything out and began quickly repacking, deciding that the inferior Russian carpets and unnecessary crockery should not be taken at all. When everything had been taken out of the cases, they recommenced packing, and it turned out, when the cheaper things not worth taking had nearly all been rejected, the valuable ones really did go all into the 2 cases. Only the lid of the case containing the carpets would not shut down. A few more things might have been taken out, but Natasha insisted on having her own way. She packed, repacked, pressed, made the butler's assistant and Petya, whom she had drawn into the business of packing, press onto the lid, and made desperate efforts herself. "That's enough, Natasha," said Sonia. "I see you were right, but take out the top one." "I won't," cried Natasha, with one hand holding back the hair that hung over her perspiring face, while with the other she pressed down on the carpets. "Now press, Petya, press, Vasilievich, press hard," she cried. The carpets yielded, and the lid closed. Natasha, clapping her hands, screamed with delight, and tears fell from her eyes. But this only lasted a moment. She at once set to work afresh, and they now trusted her completely. The Count was not angry, even when they told him that Natasha had countermanded an order of his, and the servants now came to ask her, to ask whether her cart was sufficiently loaded, and whether it might be corded up. Thanks to Natasha's directions, the work now went on expeditiously. Unnecessary things were left, and the most valuable packed as compactly as possible. But hard as they worked all night, till quite late at night actually, they could not get everything packed. The Countess had fallen asleep, and the Count, having put off their departure till next morning, went to bed. Sonia and Natasha slept in the sitting room without undressing. That night, another wounded man was driven down Poverskaya Street, and Mavra Kuzmichnya, who was standing at the gate, had brought him into the Rostovs' yard. Mavra Kuzmichnya concluded that he was a very important man. He was being conveyed in a calichet with a raised hood, and was quite covered by an apron. On the box beside the driver sat a venerable old attendant. A doctor and 2 soldiers followed the carriage and the cart. "Please come in here. The masters are going away, and the whole house will be empty," said the old woman to the old attendant. "Well, perhaps," he said with a sigh. "We don't expect him to get home alive. We have a house of our own in Moscow, but it's a long way from here, and there's nobody living in it." "Do us the honor. Come in. There's plenty of everything in the master's house. Come in," said Mavra Kuzminichna. "Is he very ill?" she asked. The attendant made a hopeless gesture. "We don't expect him to get home. We must ask the doctor." And the old servant got down from the box and went up to the cart. "All right," said the doctor. The old servant returned to the calichet, looked into it, shook his head disconsolately, told the driver to turn into the yard, and stopped beside Mavra Kuzminichna. "Oh, Lord Jesus Christ," she muttered. She invited them to take the wounded man into the house. "The masters won't object," she said. But they had to avoid carrying the man upstairs, and so they took him into the wing and put him in the room that had been Madame Chasse's. The wounded man was Prince Andrew Bolkonsky. All right, that concludes my reading of chapter 239. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll now proceed to my reflection on the same. A Year of War and Peace, day 239. Riches and Rightness. The Rostovs, despite some debt problems, are an awfully wealthy family. Throughout the novel, we've been exposed to their great wealth. Multiple estates, great food and drink, luxurious objects galore, plenty of money to spend on frivolities. What exactly has this great wealth done for them? The Count is a joke. The Countess is an emotional wreck. Nicholas, though improving, is a wild, raging young man. Natasha, likewise improving, has just spent the past few months in utter dejection and depression over her inability to control her emotions. Petya is a petulant child intent on disobeying his parents. Today's chapter, then, captures perfectly the power their wealth exercises over them. When the Rostovs learn that the people of Moscow have started looting, the entire house scrambles to get their precious possessions ready for evacuation. That is to say, concern for their riches takes precedent over all else. The Count loses his mind, shouting confused instructions. Sonia cracks up, trying to follow his orders. The Countess passes out in exhaustion. Natasha seems to be the most sane of the bunch. When Natasha is the exemplar of mental stability, it's probably time to reevaluate things. Persian carpets, goblin tapestries, china. These are not the important things in life. They do not offer sustained happiness. Throughout the novel, however, the Rostovs have focused their attention on such things. Perhaps it's time to shift their focus in a more virtuous direction. Perhaps on nursing the wounded man just brought into their home. Daily meditation. Anyone who thinks that wealth is the greatest consolation for old people, and that those who have it live without regret, is mistaken. Wealth lets people enjoy food, drink, sex, and other pleasures. But wealth would never bring contentment to a wealthy person, nor banish his grief. Musonius Rufus, Lectures. All right, that concludes my reading of and reflection on chapter 239. I hope you liked it. Thanks so much for joining me. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, A Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation to PayPal. The links to all that are down below in the show notes. Tomorrow, we're going to be reading and reflecting on chapter 240. I hope you'll join me. Until then, take care of yourselves and others.